Tonight, in our Valentine's Day broadcast, meet three couples who have been dating for 3.5 years and are answering the questions on everyone's minds today. Are long-term relationships possible at Yale?
Plus, Italy's trial of the century comes to Yale's doorstep. Stay tuned for these stories and more, because it's your Yale, your week, and your news. Hello and welcome to YTV. I'm Madison Alworth and today is February 14th, 2014. To begin, we'll go to Raleigh Cavero in the newsroom for this week's headlines.
Thanks, Madison. For the second straight year, Class Day will be headlined by a national political figure. This week, Secretary of State John Kerry, also a Yale alum, was tapped to speak to seniors on May 18th. At 22, Kerry delivered the class oration at his own graduation. And now, 48 years later, he will again take a leading role in Yale's commencement. Kerry follows last year's speaker, Newark Mayor Cory Booker. And 3 months after Kerry sends off the class of 2014, the class of 2018 will storm New Haven. And those new Yaleys will have a new way to learn about diversity. This fall, the venerable kaleidoscope will be replaced by a new program that's called Unexpected Connections. In this initiative, current students will share their stories about forming friendships outside their comfort zones. These anecdotes will be sent out in a series of emails. Undergraduates can submit their own stories for connections. They will be reviewed by the Intercultural Affairs Council. And just weeks after her inauguration, New Haven Mayor Toni Harp is already facing difficult financial choices. For the upcoming fiscal year, city department heads are requesting a combined $14 million more in funding than the city's projected revenue. Harp has said she is determined not to raise taxes on the city's residents, so that means cuts are on the horizon for several city departments. And the city budget isn't the only thing that's changing. A substantial facelift was recently approved for the curriculum at the Yale School of Medicine. The changes emphasize hands-on clinical experience. Students will now work with patients starting in their second year. Currently, students don't start clinical rotations until year 3 of their studies. The changes mean medical students will spend their entire third year just on gaining clinical experience. The curriculum will be launched in 2015. That's it for this week's headlines. Back to you in the studio.
Thanks, Raleigh. This week, YTV searched the student body for couples who have stood the test of midterms, meetings, and sometimes pure mayhem. These 3 couples have gone through it all and still emerged hand in hand. We go to Stephan Yuli to hear their secrets on what it really takes to find lasting love at Yale.
There's a myth among students at Yale that relationships here don't last. Many argue that Yaleys are simply too busy and that college screws and frat parties give us little time to create lasting relationships. But is this myth really true?
These 3 couples say absolutely not.
First met wearing each other's clothing on old campus.
So we were screw dates.
Met at Bulldog Days.
On a CT limo headed back to Bradley International Airport.
So Will and I actually met on the first day of school.
And we were in the same Froco group.
It's one thing to meet someone, but it's another to maintain a relationship. That's why they've each found their own ways to integrate their love lives with the everyday bustle of college life.
I don't think it's like an active effort.
Yeah, I think it's just day-to-day small things.
For me, it's like more than a relationship. Like, Will is one of my best friends.
For these 3, it goes beyond just spending time together. They also share a lot of similarities and know each other fairly well.
No, I'm a more party dancer. I like to get into the club and drop it.
He tries to get me to dance well, but I'm pretty stubborn with my awful dancing.
He's more organized. Definitely me, like, no question.
I think me, actually.
Ultimately, in long-term relationships, it's the little things that count.
If you have someone that has the same priorities as you do, it's easy to work on the same schedule, roughly.
I think that spending time with someone and being able to depend on someone gives me energy, which then makes me more productive and gives me time. So in reality, it's not a time sink.
Well, sometimes it's time sink.
Sometimes it's a time sink.
Time sink or not, these three couples have found their relationships worthwhile and think love is worth pursuing for every Yalie out there.
Don't let first impressions get in the way of anything.
Could be in your FOCO group.
Seriously.
You just never know.
From YTV, this has been Stephan Yuli. Happy Valentine's Day.
Thanks, Steffi.
Next, we revisit a story published in the September issue of the Yale Daily News magazine. There, Jack Newsham explored the controversy surrounding Stephan Schmid Heine, a Swiss businessman who was awarded an honorary degree from Yale 18 years ago.
The controversy came after Schmid Heine was convicted of contributing to the deaths of over 2,000 Italians living near and working in his company's asbestos plants. Now, a New Haven lawyer is pressuring Yale to answer for its past recognition of Schmid Heine. Jack Newsham has more.
It was June 3rd, 2013, in Turin, Italy, and inside the Court of Appeals, a verdict was being read that would decide the fate of a Swiss businessman charged with endangering workers in a factory that he had never even seen. He had been charged with causing a disaster there that had killed 2,000 people.
This court redetermines the overall sentence against the defendant Stephan Schmid Heine as 18 years imprisonment.
So who is Stephan Schmid Heine? If you ask some people, he's an environmental guru who rallied some of the world's largest companies to go green in the 1990s.
When the dimensions and the potentially existential threats of damages to the global environment became visible, it was then time to plan to change course.
As his defenders tell it, Schmid Heine is being punished for making the best of bad circumstances. In 1973, at age 29, Stephan inherited the presidency of Eternit, a multinational company that had for generations made concrete strengthened with a natural fiber called asbestos. What scientists soon began to agree upon, though, is that breathing asbestos causes cancer and other illnesses. Even today, some 100,000 people die every year from asbestos-related diseases. And so, Schmid Heine's attorneys claim, he invested millions to cut down on asbestos dust with new technology, shown here in footage from Swiss television channel RTI. He devoted millions more to finding replacement fiber for asbestos, even though it ended up bankrupting the Italian division of his company. In the 90s, Schmid Heine left his asbestos plants behind and invested in sustainable forestry. He wrote a book about it called Changing Course and encouraged other companies to clean up their acts too. He even came to Yale to speak about it. That's why, in 1996, Yale gave him an honorary doctorate of humane letters. In the award citation, they hailed him for making company decisions based upon the health of the planet and introducing new technologies and ways of doing business that are environmentally friendly. But to the people of Casale Monferrato, a small town in northern Italy, Yale's honorary degree is a slap in the face. If you ask them about Stephan Schmid Heine, they'll tell you he's the man responsible for poisoning their entire city. Recently, the local paper nicknamed the honoris causa degree Yale gave him a honoris causa degree.
My husband died 17 years ago. He was 49. And he died of mesothelioma. And he had never worked in the factory.
Vicky Franzanetti is a volunteer with AFEVA, an Italian Asbestos Victims Association. She also contributed translations for this video.
But why doesn't he look at the victims in their face? Why doesn't he look at them in their eyes and say, I'm sorry? Because really what they would, many of them would like, is somebody, the person responsible, saying, I'm really tragically sorry, not a lawyer going up and saying, my client is extremely sorry for what has happened and now is offering you 35,000 euros to leave the case.
Last year, local attorney Chris Meisenkothen began sending letters to Yale's administrators and trustees on behalf of AFEVA, the Victims Association. He's working pro bono and was introduced to AFEVA through an expert witness for the prosecution.
We made a number of requests in our original letter.
In a 5-page note he sent to Yale administrators, faculty, and trustees, Meisenkothen requested Yale share information regarding its decision to award Schmid Heine an honorary degree. He asked for the opportunity to meet with members of the Yale Corporation. Responding on Yale's behalf, Vice President Kimberly Goff Cruz said that the university was sorry for the suffering of asbestos victims. But the bottom line, she wrote, was that There was no record of Yale ever revoking an honorary degree, and we are not considering that step in regard to Mr. Schmid-Heine. Yale University's website shows that over 2,700 honorary degrees have been awarded since 1702, and none seem to have inspired so much controversy. In subsequent letters, Meisenkothen inquired about 2 donations that one of Schmid-Heine's companies had made to the Yale Center for Environmental Law and Policy. Golf Crews confirmed them, but insisted that donations have no bearing on awarding honorary degrees. Meisenkothen also requested Yale form a faculty committee to investigate whether the award was merited.
That we have here a case where, on the one hand, it seems that we may have awarded an honorary doctorate to somebody for something where that person was actually not excellent in that area, but actually a great offender in that area for many years. And secondly, and perhaps even more disturbingly, there is a possibility, and again, I'm not taking a stance at this, certainly at this point, there's at least a possibility that Yale has been had.
Still, Golf Crews, who declined to be interviewed for this story, demurred. In a December letter to Meisenkothen, she said without going into detail that Yale does not believe that the events subsequent to the award of degree call into question the essential information upon which the committee and the corporation acted. Meisenkothen said he doesn't view the university as an adversary, but he's not happy with the response.
And they haven't attempted to grapple at all or respond really to the very substantive points that we've made.
William K. Riley was a Yale trustee in the 1990s and submitted Schmid-Heine's name for consideration for an honorary degree. He said in a phone call that the scope of the disaster in Casale was not known to his committee, nor were the legal troubles of Vourtsanis' Italian management that began in the 1980s.
Well, I didn't have detailed understanding in 1996 of the cement business and asbestos making, or of this angry community in Italy. This was, at the time, not a controversial decision.
But Riley criticized the Italian court for stretching the law in an effort to tar Schmid-Heine as the bad guy. He also said he thinks Schmid-Heine deserved the honor, saying he brought environmental thinking to investment and called the idea of an inquiry preposterous.
Have any tobacco manufacturers or sellers been tried in Italy? If it was killing all the people that we now know it was, and we've known it since the Surgeon General's report in 1966 in the United States, where have they been on that one? There's a whole series of procedural curiosities about the case.
Schmid-Heine's defenders have strongly objected to the trial, comparing it to other Italian legal controversies like the case of Amanda Knox, who was tried for a second time after being declared not guilty, and the conviction of several seismologists who were accused of failing to predict an earthquake in central Italy. Martin Kilius, a Swiss law professor and judge, has written extensively about wrongful convictions and says he believes intense public pressure made the trial completely unfair. And he might have a point. A judge responsible for sentencing Schmid-Heine went so far as to compare him to Hitler before even issuing his judgment, a statement Kilius says would be illegal in many European countries. Still, Meisenkothen says Yale is avoiding the big questions.
Residents living in the area have an astronomically high rate of mesothelioma. And so was that part of the essential information? And if it wasn't back in 1995 and 96, when Yale was considering this, shouldn't they be considering that now?
We would be well advised to look into this and either stick to our guns and say we have nothing to be ashamed of, this is a perfectly good honorary doctorate, he deserved it, or to say we made a big mistake, we've been had, and we should rescind this honorary doctorate.
Schmid-Heine's defense team has now taken the case to Italy's Supreme Criminal Court and has vowed to go as far as appealing to the European Court of Human Rights. For YTV, this has been Jack Newsham.
Italy outlawed asbestos in 1992. As if the snow and ice weren't enticing enough, students now have another reason to make that trek up Science Hill. Laurie Santos' recently opened Canine Cognition Center. Research has been underway for about a month. For more, we go to Kristen Mendez and Jenny Sherrill.
The Canine Cognition Center, or Dog Lab, has been open since December 9th, and studies are progressing quickly. Psychologists have been conducting research on dogs to gain insight on human behavior. We are here now with Professor Laurie Santos to hear more about what's going on inside the lab.
The new Canine Cognition Center at Yale, and we are interested in what makes the human mind unique. And we study that question by turning to a good model of the animal mind, which is the domesticated dog. What we do is we bring in dogs from the community, and we bring them to the center and set them up in little behavioral experiments where they get to find food and problem solve, and that lets us learn about how they think about the world and how they make decisions and solve problems.
Owners volunteer their dogs to partake in the research, knowing that they'll be in good hands.
We're doing lots of studies to try to figure out what the dogs know about the social world. Do they make sense of the social world by paying attention to what other people are thinking and what other people know? We're also interested in how dogs make sense of the physical world. Do they categorize objects in some of the same ways as humans do? Do they track the number of objects that they see in the scene? And how do dogs compare in their abilities to do that with human infants?
The Dog Lab encourages all members of the Yale community to get involved with the research.
So we have undergrads who do undergrad research projects as part of the center. We're a bit booked up for this semester, but we have positions available over the summer and then both in the fall semester too.
You can stay updated on their research online, or if you have a dog or are in need of some puppy time, you know where to go. This has been Kristen Mendez and Jenny Sherrill reporting for YTV.
Thanks, guys. Unfortunately, the lab is not currently looking for any undergraduate volunteers.
And that's it for tonight. Thank you for watching YTV. We leave you with a few Valentine's Day wishes from your fellow Yaleys.
We'll see you next Friday at 3. It's your Yale, your week, and your news.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day to my mom.
Happy Valentine's Day to the Basement crew. Love you guys.
Happy Valentine's Day from Lunchbox 23.
Happy Valentine's Day, Helena Bonham Carter.
It's for you, Beyonce. I'm gonna rock your body, your body.
Happy Valentine's Day to the Yale men's tennis team.
Ha en underbar alla hjärtans dag.
Happy Valentine's Day. You're a cool guy, Pablo. Happy Valentine's Day from Joe and Lily to our YTV viewers.